Curse of Strahd, episode 6. Ooh, man. Okay. We finally had a downtime episode. But before I get into that too much, this is the breakdown of my Curse of Strahd campaign. They are entering into the village of Barovia. They did a whole bunch of stuff in Barovia. They are wrapping things up now and about to head out of the village of Barovia. And if you're interested in seeing the actual live play of these things, the first time I've ever done live play games of actual footage from our games, check that out over on Patreon. I post every single one of our game footage over on there, and my Dungeon Master binder, which I go over in all of these, is also on there. So anyway, check that out if you want to see that. But this is the breakdown where I go over what I thought was going to happen, and then some behind the scenes on some curveballs I made. In this session, there was a lot of them. So we all know how crazy things can get, and the curveballs we get thrown as Dungeon Masters, and this is the behind the scenes on that. So spoilers, you've been warned, okay? But what this session was going to be like is right here in this binder. So this was, normally I have my entire Curse of Strahd binder, which is this whole session log thing. I have the land of Barovia. This is the village of Barovia. I have every single thing of everything in Barovia with all 10 spots. I added more spots. The original only has 6. I added 4 more. All the NPCs here, all documented and stuff. But what I did is I did a live prep on my main channel of what I did to prep for it. But I went through the city, and then I'm like, man, they've really been in the city. This is probably the last time they're going to be here. At least they might double back at some point in the future. Who knows? But I just did a pass through of the whole city to make sure I got everything out of it as possible. And then I went and made this document just to make sure I can actually go through it nice and smooth for just the next session. And this was the whole thing right here. So where they left off was they just killed Doru, the Father Donovich's son. And I had here, he ends his life if he's left alone. So yeah, they got Father Donovich out from the thing. He was knocked out and unconscious, and they just kind of left him in his bed and left. And then I was like, okay, he's a goner. So there was that. I just knew that was going to be gone. And then later they said like, oh no, we told some NPC about him. I was like, oh, okay, fine. They come back and report to you that he's dead. Whatever, right? So they're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess, yeah, he couldn't. Okay, there's that. But they never got to talk to him. There's a little bit of lore there is left on the table of if they woke him up and talked to him. I totally thought that was going to happen, but that did not happen. And he had I could have given a whole bunch of lore drops there. Didn't get him. All right, that's fine. I'm not going to force the lore on my players, you know what I'm saying? So then they went, and I had some extra little challenge I threw Finian here. It's Finian's hand. Finian got bit in the hand by a vampire, and I was like, I really want this to mean something. And she got knocked unconscious. It was like unconscious, super close to dead. Crazy, closest anyone's got to dying. And was literally one player's turn away from it being over with. And that player, Lars the Bard, came in clutch. But I wanted that to mean something, because if a player goes down that way, I want it to be some sort of lingering injury type of thing. So they had this lingering injury that they couldn't cast magic from their right hand. They could from their left hand, but they couldn't cast magic from their right hand. I was like, oh no. So I knew they were about to have downtime, and I knew Finian was going to take efforts to alleviate that, and she did, and it was all good. They got the hand repaired back, but it was some work, some cool RP of fire and flames and cleansing the flame. It was really, yeah. So I love to challenge my players with little role play moments to overcome some injuries they get along the way and make those injuries really impactful. Really try and beat them down inside of the land of Barovia, right? But anyway, then we shifted in some downtime stuff, and what I thought was going to happen was some downtime, normal cool downtime stuff. Everybody's doing their different stuff, and we just kind of progress some things along here, and then they eventually leave, and they head towards the Vistani camp with the fortune teller, and we'll have a fortune teller reading. There we go. Okay, cool. And that's kind of what happened. Woo, there we go. That's kind of what happened. Everything went there. They did not do as much stuff in town. Admittedly, they did a bunch of stuff in town already, but I just didn't know if there was anything else that was going to be done in town. So I just want to sit back, let them see what they did. And they engaged with the town a lot. They went and helped the town. The Felix and Lars brothers, the Rogue and Bard brothers, they gave donated gold to the town and went through and kind of like helped lift people's spirits and stuff, and all that was really cool to see. Finian went to the church and tried to rebuild and remake the church and tried to heal her own hand, help Pug with the whole Pug's broken arm situation that's now healed itself through some work. Helping out Lou went and helped out the town and found some more rats to talk to, and there was a bunch of everybody did their thing. Everybody did some cool stuff, and this was kind of my agenda overall. I told the whole group, I was like, hey, this is kind of the stuff that's going on in the town. Engage with whatever you want. Nobody wanted to go on the little side quest for this, so that was fine. Nobody really wanted to talk to the villagers about some other lore there. That's fine. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Okay, cool. Do your thing. And then Ismar, and then also I had some individual scenes that I set up and prepared for each of the players. Of just like I wanted to have one thing for each player that I would specifically choose to put on them, just in case they didn't really have anything on their own of whatever. So each little scene here, the one I'm going to stick with, or what I'm going to point out, is the dead rat scene, which was just really beautiful. This little boy comes up with a small cat that they heard that there was heroes in the town that could cleanse the land and this and that. So he brings up this little small cat to the cleric, and I was like, "Hey, there's a cow. Can you help my cat? Can you help my cat?" And the cat was like unmoving, and then Finian's like, "I want to try and see and evaluate." Made a animal check or whatever, and saw, and it got a 19, and I was like, "This cat is fully dead." And they're like, "Oh no, like it's long gone. Like the cat's been dead for days." And this kid thinks that you can revive this cat. And then in a really cool moment of role play, the Finian was like, I want to show this kid like the concept of like the life and death and the flames and all that kind of stuff, and they did this whole little cool moment where they gave a little burial to the cat and then the fire, and then made a spell check, and whenever they buried the cat, there's a little fire cat that spawned up and like jumped off into the distance and dissipated. And it was a really cool moment of just almost as the hope of this land and coming back out there. That was just really cool. Super cool. I had some more stuff with Ismark and Irina towards Lars, because Lars and Irina, Lars is trying to pursue Irina romantically, so that's kind of interesting. Wanted to keep a little beat on that. We'll talk about Pug here in a second. Felix, this actually, I backed off entirely. Felix has this whole curse situation thing that he had. He touched this thing and he had this hunger and this urge, and I was going to have this whole, but then Felix also had like Felix had 3 different things that was affecting the player agency of being able to make choices and choose. And even just talking with the player, like in real life, they're like, "Man, I just got all these things going on." And I was like, "Man, he's got a lot of stuff. It's true. They got a lot of stuff going on." So this is something I actually just backed off of. I throw a lot of curveballs at my players. I throw a lot of weird stuff at them, as we'll get to in a second. But I didn't want to just keep hammering this whole hunger curse thing in. It was something that the player didn't really take that big of a risk on. They touched it. They felt this urge. And I was like, that's good enough. If they now mess with it again, it's a cursed necklace or whatever. If they're reckless with it again, okay, I'll bring it back in. But I'm like, I'm gonna back off of that. I'm gonna back off the curse thing. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it adds it to anything, because he has plenty of other stuff going on that's doing that, getting that vibe across for me. So I've literally backed off of that entirely. And then they went to this is my final little tracker thing for my downtime. At the end of the first day, if they took 1 day of downtime, they were going to get their gifts from Ismark, which was going to happen. I gave them 5 magic items. There's a shop with a bunch of magic items, but they all cost like absorbently crazy, purposefully insane amounts of gold. It's no way that anyone could buy it, because the shop owner's a dick and he has crazy prices and he's just a jerk to them and all that stuff, right? So there's that. And the only way they're going to get magic items was by doing stuff in the town, and they did literally everything you could possibly do in the town. I had it originally set to where they could get 3 magic items from solving the 3 big problems, but they also solved the 4th problem of cleansing all of the zombies in the town. They did this huge thing in the skill challenge, and then other time to just cleanse the zombies. That's crazy. And then now that they've done 4, I was like, well, there's 5 players and they've done everything possible. Here's a bonus magic item, and I gave them 5 magic items, each, right? And these magic items are not that strong whatsoever. So they got a bedroll with a fire on it, and a lantern that lets people see invisibility. So we'll see how often that comes up, which in this setting maybe it does. They got a cloak that lets you like look more impressive with persuasion and performance, which was given to the bard. So that's double dipping in there, so fine. Lou got a flute that summons rats, but little does she know, rats and wolves and most beasts in the land are spies of Strahd. So every time she plays that flute, rats are going to come to her and spy on her. So we'll see if she figures some things out with that. I'm giving her active clues. I'm giving her clues toward this. I'm not just like, yeah, but anyway. And then the last player picked the sending stone. There's one half of a sending stone, and it was described as there's this stone that has somebody trapped inside of it, when it's really a voice coming out of the stone from the other end of the sending stone, etc. So the player, this player knows about all the stuff in the game. They did very good job of not metagaming. They chose this stone for legit reasons, and now they have other half of a sending stone. Spoiler alert, and I'll tell you right now, what's on the other side of that sending stone is the Mad Mage Mordenkainen. Mordenkainen from Mordenkainen's Tome of like the super powerful crazy wizard. He's on the other side of this, but he's lost his mind. He's absolutely crazy. I've done some homebrew stuff with his story arc. But there's a mage that has cast mind blank on himself, gone insane, and he's hiding in the forest, is on the other side of the sending stone. So we'll see what happens with that. But that was that. And then I had some other things here. If they stayed even longer, newcomers come into town. New people come in, and there's interesting story that they told about seeing a man that looked like Gustav, which was the owner of the house, was welcoming them food and drinks, but then said that they had to go. And so now things back at the death house have changed. Now things are different. They did not get all of this. I was in the middle of kind of saying some stuff with the role play of these scared newcomers to this land, and they didn't get out all the lore as possible. They know that something's going on there, but they didn't really dive into it, so I didn't really push it, and I backed off of it. And if they had stayed around for 2 more days, they ended up at the end of the second day, beginning of the third day, they set off towards to leave the town. But if they had stayed for 2 more days, which I don't know why they would have, I did not think that they would have found a new adventuring group come into town. And this was the new adventuring group that was going to come into town. Grifter, Hazel, Bruce, Siren, and Max. And I had all of these. All of these are 5 characters. I had their just general roleplay nuggets of being able to roleplay them. I was going to have each of the 5 players roll on this D20 table of what class they were. So I was going to role play them, and as they came into frame, or like to where I need to describe them, I was going to have one player roll a d20, and that would be the class they did. So I thought that would be a fun thing to do. This is the rivals, by the way. This group right here are the rival group that I'm introducing into the campaign. They are going to come on the 4th day. I'm keeping track of time, and I'm going to keep track of this group. Is a rival group of NPCs. 5 NPCs versus 5 PCs. This rival group is going to come into town and be an opposing force in some way. I don't know how yet. They're going to be an opposing force in some way, whether they're going and doing something before, maybe they find an item before the players and they're trying to do good and they're opposing them and trying to do good, and they're almost holding them back from doing good things because they went and found a magic item that the players now can't have. So that's kind of sucks. Or maybe Strahd gets into them and Strahd kind of brings them over to his side, and they join Strahd's side and fall into darkness, and now they have to fight them. So at some point there might be a PvP battle between 5 NPC or PC built type of characters. You gotta build them like PCs. But yeah, that'll be interesting to look forward to. But they left already, so that we will not see that. So I will hold on to that whenever I come back through. I'm gonna do my next session prep and dive back through here to make sure I get all the pieces and stuff to pull back in. And then now we actually do need to go to my Curse of Strahd binder, campaign session log, Land of Barovia. Here's the entire thing. And now they went through the hanging gallows of the haunted little hanging one, which is like noose type situation. Then they went to Tesser Pools, which is where the Vistani are, the fortune tellers, Madame Eva. And I messed up here. I made a mistake. I immediately covered it up. They have no idea I made a mistake. I just basically added an NPC into this whole thing, and went in an interesting direction. But basically, Madame Eva, right? She is a traitor Vistani. The Vistani serve Strahd, which is like a group of these fortune teller type people that serve Strahd, and they do his bidding. They travel in and out of the land of Barovia. They are his servants, right? Madame Eva has a crazy big backstory that I'm not going to get into right now, but Madame Eva is connected to Strahd in a way, very heavily, and I'll leave it at that for right now. But she is actively trying to stop Strahd from doing all of the crazy stuff he's doing, and she's helping the players to try and get them to help stop Strahd, right? Because he's gone too far. She cares for Strahd, but she is trying to stop him from doing more harm because he's become a monster, right? So she's trying to help these players. But the other Vistani are starting to get onto Madame Eva and know that she's doing this. So it's kind of risky for her to do it, but she gave each of the characters a vision for them to come here, and then they arrive. When they arrived, and I was like, oh, blah, 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 you're here to see Madame Eva. And I was like, God dang it. That wouldn't happen. That's not what would happen. They would not know. The players would have to try and go see Madame Eva, and I missed out entirely on what I had originally planned of where the Vistani don't know about Madame Eva's fortune telling and spilling the beans to adventurers. So the adventurers would come here and say they're looking for Madame Eva, and if they start telling you that they had a vision, that would have thrown Madame Eva under the bus, and it would have been bad. But I messed up, and I was like, oh, you want to see Madame Eva? And I was like, okay, this guy tells you that like secretly though, and it's kind of weird how secretive he's being. And then you get in a boat and you start like going across the lake towards Madame Eva's tent, and on the boat he's like, all right, listen here, and he's like talking about how he's basically like a spy with Madame Eva, and him and Madame Eva are in on this together, and there's a few of us that are kind of rebel Vistani, and But I was like, okay, interesting. So now this guy is one of those, and then he tells them, don't let people know about the vision. Don't let people know about the visions and other things like that. Don't let people know. And then they get into the town, and then they arrive at the boat docks or whatever, and then they're going through. And I wanted to test them. Because I didn't want them to have just a free ride to Madame Eva. So I had this big guy come up that I came up with on the fly, come out of nowhere. I had none of this was planned. I had none of this. Like I even skipped over the story about the Vistani story about the. Oh yeah, so. Yeah, and that's the wizard that came out. So I might need to find some way to weave that back in there. But whoops, oh well. That now I had this NPC out of nowhere come out, and this big rough guy like, hey, where you guys going? What's where you headed? Like, we're here to see Madame Eva. Da, da, da. And one of the players the bard let slip that you have a fortune teller. And she's a fortune teller, and she's gonna go see some fortunes. And he's like, fortune teller, what? And so, and he let it slip on the fortune thing, and then they're on the radar. So I was like, okay, now they're on the radar, but I don't want to stop them from getting their fortunes read, because this is a huge thing. The Madame Eva's tent event is a huge thing about the cards and the reading the results of the cards and all that kind of stuff. I had all the stuff ready. They have to get these readings. So I was like, okay. The big rough and tough NPC that they messed up and slipped up on. He's like, okay, go talk to Madame Eva, but don't leave until you talk to me. You're talking to me after. And he was like real rough about it or whatever. And so then they go talk to Madame Eva. They get the reading done. We had the cool card reading. It was really cool at the table, like playing out the cards and all of that. And I gotta be a crazy old woman with them. And then got the cards readings. And at the end of the session, they had to go. And they're like, we're gonna run. And then they made a bolt for it. I made it some checks went their way, and they were able to just zip out of the tent super quick. So they got away, and that's where the session ended. But I forgot one thing about this whole session that was actually kind of crazy, is Pug has this skin bag that has a boogeyman inside of it. It's just, I thought this was going to be a long thing over the course of a campaign where there's this creepy bag man situation. And then long story short, one of the players used an inspiration dice, a Dungeon Master inspiration dice, which I have told them they can say a hypothetical flashback of a what if, like what if actually, and it gives them a really cool moment to kind of shake up the story. And it was really cool because the player played this and like, what if I actually stayed guard over Pug that night, because Pug woke up and something moved with the bag, and they're like, dang it, we said we were gonna stake out I was gonna stake out. I'm like, you never said you did though. And like, and then she used the inspiration dice to keep watch over Pug, and when she kept watch over Pug, they found that a creature was coming inside the room to watch over and fought. And the bag, basically there's a creature inside the bag that keeps coming out to like mess with Pug and stalk Pug, and is like hunting and about to eventually kill Pug, and like all this creepy stuff, right? So the Pug left the bag, but the bag came out open. It was on the way in. The creature came out of the bag, picked up the bag, was heading towards the room late at night, and with some good rolls and some high initiative check, all this stuff, Lou was able to come out and start attacking this creature, going to town with it. And then Pug comes out, goes to town with it as well, but all of its abilities are specifically targeting Pug, because Pug is the source of this creature's intent, and blasted it with it. It took this creature was very very powerful creature. Knocked out Pug in one hit from this the eye, like a Fomorian eye gaze type situation. Knocked out Pug in one hit, and then was on top of Pug attacking, but they were able to deal enough damage to kill it before it killed Pug. And this really didn't really even think of it, close near death scenario of another PC yet again, and but they killed it and then solved the bag problem, and there's that. So they are just solving problems left and right, almost dying left and right, so things are going great as far as I'm concerned. And that is the session. And next session they are going to pick up as they escape the Vallaki camp, and then they're heading off towards Vallaki. So I got some prep to do, because man, yeah, the Vallaki's a big one. So I'm going to do some prep on the main channel with all of that, and we'll see how that goes with Vallaki, because Vallaki's a big place to prep. So next time, stay great. I think I said the box. Peace.